Welcome to the motherfucking we're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. The latest from former WBO champion Sandy Ryan on the heels of her competitive loss to Michaela Mayer in New York. Sandy said, despite the result in not retaining my world title, I have to be grateful in victory and defeat as boxing has made me into the woman I am today. I'm hurt, but I'll be back. The most hate comes from the people in the same industry as you, and it's them ones that'll show fake love. It's crazy. I do wonder about that last part, what she was referring to. You wonder that she wasn't...
Who was she talking about? What was she talking about?
The paint incident, perhaps? The paint assault right before the fight. The NYPD said they've opened up an investigation to find out who threw that paint at Sandy as she left the hotel.
I have my suspicions as to who the culprits were.
Friends of Michaela Mayer, perhaps? Not necessarily members of her team or people that were in her corner the night of, but her old buddies? Anything is possible. At the same time, Eddie Hearn has said that he's lobbying for a rematch, second fight.
The truth is, he might not get anywhere with any of that. The investigation via the New York Police Department, lobbying for a second fight for one to be ordered.
The other alphabet titles, besides the one that Michaela just took from Sandy, are on the boxer side of things. Lauren Price has the WBA. Natasha Jonas has the IBF. Croatia's own two-time welterweight champion Ivana Habazin, she's got the WBC, but I believe she's in bed with Boxer. I believe she's gonna do something with them. Now, the World Boxing Council have ranked Sandy Ryan as the #1 contender via their ranks in the welterweight division. So if Ivana Habazin doesn't hurry up and schedule a fight, a unification match, with either the two champions at Boxer or Michaela Mayer, she may find herself under orders to satisfy Sandy as her mandatory challenger. If she does, and a fight gets made, Sandy beats her.
Sandy wins.
If Ivana doesn't hurry up and schedule a unification match with someone else.
And even if she does, even if she fights Lauren Price, even if she fights Natasha Jonas and she loses and the title changes hands, whoever wins, whoever ends up WBC champion, they may have to answer to Sandy.
That's something to think about. The only catch-22 in that scenario is that Sandy would go in as the challenger, not the champion, and that in all likelihood, she'd have to cross the street for the fight. Ben isn't going to send any of his girls to Matchroom. He's not going to send Natasha. He's not going to send Lauren.
Nope.
They ain't going to go to Matchroom. Sandy would have to go over to Boxer for the fight. And at Boxer, well, they could job her just as easily as they jobbed Michaela Mayer when she went over there for the Natasha Jonas fight.
That's the drawback.
So even if Sandy is ranked at #1 via the World Boxing Council and she has an avenue to get at another alphabet title, it's not without its drawbacks.
An alternative.
Now, she could stick around at welterweight, see if she can't make something happen. Or she can try to get ahead of these girls, ahead of these welterweight champions that are not going to be welterweights forever.
Move up.
A long-term strategy, a long-term plan to get ahead of the champions at 147 that is a more bubbling and talked about division than 154.
Move up.
There are currently 3 champions in the junior middleweight division 3. There is Slovenia's own Emma Kozin, who holds both the WBC and WBO titles. There is Belgium's own Femke Hermans, she's got the IBF, and Mary Spencer is registered as the full WBA champion via the WBA's website. You could give Sandy Ryan very good odds to beat any of these 3 fighters, these 3 champions. Now, these fights at 154 are not going to be as big as the fights at 147. That's why it's a long-term strategy. To get ahead of the champions at 147, you become a champion at 154. You pick up as many of those alphabet titles as you can, so when the day comes those welterweights move up, they have to answer to you, and you have the edge. You have the leverage. You're the champion.
Even if those fights at 154 don't have the same profile as the fights at 147, if you get a head start on a junior middleweight campaign, you get a head start on all those girls that are eventually going to move up. They won't be welterweights forever.
The way it is, if you stay at welter, you may yet get one of those names in the ring, but you'll be at a disadvantage, like you were in your last fight.
Something to think about. Should she stay at 147?
Should she go to 154? At 154, she would be the only fighter up there that has a major promotional outfit and real money behind her. Enough to get any one of these champions in the ring. She'd be the A-side to them.
That's worth something.
Part of me wants Sandy Ryan to move up. A part of me wants her to go up there and shake things up, create a stir, dominate that division.
Because I know that she can.
She's a great fighter, and I want to see more of her. Moreover, I don't want to see her at a disadvantage again. Men's light heavyweight news. You may have heard yesterday via David Benavidez himself on his social media that a David Morrell fight is next. The one that people have been asking for. There was a lot of names on the table, but I wanted to give my fans the best fight possible. I reached out to David Morrell and his team to make this fight happen, and we got the contract done. This fight is really going to be a banger. Two of the best in the division and two titles on the line. Let's go. Date and location to be announced shortly.
Preliminary reports seem to indicate that the fight will go down early next year in Las Vegas, but the date has not been finalized yet.
So this is somewhat different than the rumors that we were hearing, that David Benavidez would co-main event Gervonta Davis's next fight, the one that was announced with Lamont Roach. If he's not the co-main to Gervonta's next fight, and he's headlining his own show, it's conceivable this is going to be a pay-per-view.
That's a problem.
We touched on this in my last live stream, and for those that missed it, we'll get into what was discussed.
Bear in mind, the rumors in association with this fight were shot down just a few days ago. Veteran boxing scribe Jake Donovan touched on that, saying, not sure why Benavidez-Morrell rumors keep popping up when literally everyone involved has repeatedly dismissed any possibility of that fight happening next for David Benavidez.
Which is true. He's not off base. I believe I saw a tweet from Michael Benson that stated as much, that Michael Benson asked David about it, and David told him all of that stuff was fake.
That was what, 2-3 days ago?
2 or 3 days later, Jake Donovan said, well, drastic change in the last 24 hours. At least Sampson was on record yesterday calling it false for my own saving grace. Credit to both Davids, Benavidez and Morrell, for getting it done in a hurry. Can't wait for it, whether December or January.
Why were they so cloak and dagger? Why were they so secretive?
Why did they dispel any notion that this might be David Benavidez's next fight if the whole time this is what they were working on? I think they didn't want to get people's hopes up. I think they wanted the fight and its announcement to be a pleasant surprise, so they didn't want to give it away right away. They wanted to make sure.
They wanted to get the fight done.
This is a better fight than the Jesse Hart fight. I think that goes without saying. This is someone you actually want to see David Benavidez in there with. Though how bad?
How much?
It's smart of David Benavidez to take care of this now.
No.
Don't let this guy have more fights, more experiences at light heavyweight. Don't let this guy who's only 11-0 or 12-0 become that much more developed over time, because by the time you fight him, he'll be a better fighter. You do this now.
No.
I've talked about this fight in passing several times, and how David Morrell actually has the right style for the job. He has the right style for David Benavidez, though perhaps not the right level of experience, not the right level of competition. That's where he's lacking.
But he's got the right style. I even think he punches harder than David. That punch for punch, David Morrell packs a bigger punch than David Benavidez.
Heard it on more than one occasion from former champion Alexander Vajdik or seasoned veteran Lonnie B that David Benavidez is not a hard puncher, and he's not physically strong, at least not physically strong for a light heavyweight, where this contest would take place for the WBC interim and the WBA regular.
He's not a hard puncher. I've heard that more than once. It facilitates what I already thought, that David Benavidez, while a volume puncher and a busy puncher, he's not actually a big puncher, and he hasn't faced very many, if any, big punchers. I think David Morrell is a bigger puncher than he is.
So between David Morrell having the right style for the job and David Benavidez having far more experience, far more fights, more rounds in the bank, it is indeed a good fight. It's a good fight, but is it $90 good? This is where they hit a wall. You're talking about Gervonta Davis's ring return in December, then you're talking about this fight in January, the following month. Those two box office fights are far too close together.
I mean, just doing a pay-per-view in December, in a very general sense, is risky because most people are spending their money on their loved ones. It's the holidays, Christmas, right around the corner.
To then ask those same people, those same boxing fans, to go into their wallets again when they're recovering from Christmas the following month in January?
Come on.
So while it's main event worthy, it's not pay-per-view worthy. Emphasis on not pay-per-view worthy, as not every main event is a pay-per-view. This is a fight that ideally you would be getting as part of your Showtime subscription, if Showtime were still in boxing.
They're not.
This is a fight you could use to draw eyes on the platform as part of a regular schedule, but as a pay-per-view, it's gonna be abysmal. I'm telling you right now.
A lot of people are not gonna buy this.
They're talking about staging the Rayo Valenzuela versus Isaac Cruz rematch on the undercard. Once again, trying to doll the card up, spruce things up, to entice the consumer to buy it. But how bad does anybody want to see Rayo versus Cruz too?
How bad if it's gonna cost them $75, $80, $90?
How bad? How much? So while I like Benavidez versus Morrell as a fight, as a main event, as a pay-per-view, that's something else. Consider that this weekend, this Saturday, we're getting a better fight than that one at no additional charge. Beterbiev versus Bivol, if you're in America, if you're in Canada, you get that as part of your subscription. You're getting that whole card as part of your regular DAZN subscription.
And ESPN.
I don't have to tell you that Beterbiev versus Bivol is a better fight involving two better fighters than those two.
You should know that.
If you're one of these people that presumes to know anything about boxing, you should already know that Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol are better fighters than David Benavidez and David Morrell. The fight they're about to have is being fought at a higher level, a much higher level than Benavidez versus Morrell. That's for two baby belts, two trinket titles, secondary titles.
Beterbiev versus Bivol is for the big boy belts, for all the marbles, for history in the light heavyweight division. When's the last time this division even had an undisputed champion? It has to have been more than 2 decades.
And you don't have to pay anything extra to see that fight, so that the PBC can turn around and charge you $75 or $80 for this one? It's ridiculous.
And that's after they charge you, whatever they charge you, for the Gervonta Davis fight in December. In January, you have to pay again.
So as much as I like Benavidez versus Morrell as a fight, you can't justify it being a pay-per-view, and because they're headlining the show in January, it's conceivable that's how they're gonna bill it. I have no problem with the fight, but I have a problem with how it's packaged.
You can't justify that.
It's the only problem I have with this thing. It's a good fight, it's good, but it's not a great fight. Not $75, $80 great. No, sir. Elsewhere in the light heavyweight division, ahead of this weekend's mega match, Dmitry Bivol cautious of dangerous Artur Beterbiev. You have to prepare not to get punched.
That's what I told you. It's not about Dmitry standing up to Artur's power. It's about working around it.
Dmitry Bivol doesn't believe the aging and often injured Artur Beterbiev has lost a step. Bivol will finally find out Saturday in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, when he faces Beterbiev for the undisputed light heavyweight title. I feel amazing before the most important fight of my life, Bivol told Boxing Scene. Just look at his record to see why he's a really dangerous fighter. It's proven that he's one of the most dangerous opponents. He has the skills. He's not only just a good puncher, he's really good and smart fighter. He has experience and a good boxing IQ. He has 3 belts for a reason. For his age, he has really good conditioning. I just need to be myself and improve on my skills. You can't prepare to get punched. You have to prepare not to get punched.
Hit and not get hit. You hear it all the time. That will be pivotal for Dmitry on Saturday.
Bivol is 33 years old and Artur is 39. They were originally supposed to fight this past June, but the fight was postponed after Beterbiev suffered a ruptured meniscus in training, adding to a long list of injuries he sustained in recent years. I will try to do all of my best, said Bivol. If I can try to finish the fight, of course, I will use the opportunity. In my head, I am always thinking about how to win this fight and how to make everything perfect. I'm not thinking about the knockout, to be honest. To prepare for the fight, instead of training in Indio, California, his usual locale, Bivol trained in the mountains of Kyrgyzstan for 3 weeks and 45 days in Turkey, and 2 weeks before the fight relocated to Riyadh. My body is a little different than when I was preparing for Canelo 2 years ago, said Bivol. My conditioning coach can see and is giving me new and different exercises. At the same time, though, it's a similar program. Should Dimitri Bivol beat Artur Beterbiev? The WBC mandatory challenger David Benavidez awaits a crack at his crown. Bivol could also be inclined to move up to cruiserweight to challenge title holder Jai Opetaia, who is set to fight on his undercard against Jack Macy. Bivol could also attract Alvarez for their long-anticipated rematch.
I don't think David's gonna fight the winner of that fight, whether it's Artur or Dimitri. However, he would sooner face Dimitri.
If he had to choose, if he were to end up fighting one of them, it would sooner be Dimitri than Artur, because Dimitri, for all his gifts, is nowhere near as devastating a puncher as Artur. To be honest, I don't have any plans as to who I will fight next, said Bivol. I don't know if the rematch would be worse for Canelo. I'm not thinking about Canelo. I waited a year and a half, and it was only talk and no action or negotiations. It's a closed subject. I'm busy with Beterbiev. We'll see if that happens afterwards. Bivol added that beating Beterbiev would be more significant to his career, a bigger career accomplishment, than his star-making unanimous decision against Alvarez. Both are important, but with the belts. Of course, the Beterbiev win would be more important and more meaningful for my soul than Canelo, said Bivol. It means a lot to me. For me, Canelo was a step to have huge fights in my career. It was a great opportunity for me to show the world that I am a good boxer and for them to pay attention to me. I proved that. I was good and champion worthy. But now he's on to the big fish. Now it's the big enchilada.
You have to appreciate the stoicism from this guy, the rawness, that he doesn't talk about that Canelo Alvarez win in any other context than the one it belongs in. That he was a smaller fighter that's moving up in weight, and he didn't make much about it. He doesn't.
Doesn't pretend that beating Canelo has anything to do with trying to beat Artur Beterbiev. This is the big one.
So because he's stoic, taking the assignment seriously, I expect to see a Dimitri Bivol.
He's about as ready as he's gonna be, in rare form. We may see a Bivol we've never seen before, where it all comes together, because it has to beat this dragon. Tenuously, I am going with Dimitri Bivol. Death by 1,000 cuts. Because it's like he said, and like I've been telling you, it's not about standing up to Artur's power. I don't think there's anybody in the light heavyweight division that can do that. You don't stand up to it. You work around it. You don't trade with him, trying to get the best of him in the exchange. You don't just shell up and coil up and absorb those punches on the arms and gloves. You can't take them. I don't think there is a light heavyweight that can take Artur's power.
I don't think Dimitri can take Artur's power. Not if he lets Artur hit him.
The thing is, why would he? If anyone is defensively responsible enough to work around that kind of power and still get the job done, it's Dimitri more than anybody else. It's Dimitri.
Bivol.
Now comes to it. In and out, on his toes, throwing straight punches from the outside coming in, then stepping out as Artur responds, as Artur goes to counter.
If Dimitri does what I think he's gonna do, he won't be there. And as Artur inches forward to try to get something going, he'll walk Artur into a counter.
Easier said than done, I know. All things are that for Bivol to win, he's got to be perfect for 36 minutes. It's a long time with Artur Beterbiev in the ring.
Crazy as it sounds, I think he can do it.